Bowers welcoming you to Dialogue at E+ TV 6 and a special opportunity to visit with Mr. Joe Exum. Many things in his life, a one-time president, CEO of the Jackson Utility Division, longtime member of the Rotary Club in this city, a community leader, and Hollywood Cemetery. He's been involved in many, many things in life. That's just part of it. I remember you saying one time when the Rotary Club had its 100th anniversary that you were almost a charter member.
Almost, not quite.
Not quite, but got close. It's very good to have this opportunity to visit with you. Were you born in Jackson, Madison County?
Madison County, out North Holland.
Okay. Out near Ashford?
Ashford Road.
What was out there in those days?
Farmland. Farmland.
Okay, yeah.
I was born at the northwest corner. Back then, women went with relatives when they were expecting and fixing to have a baby.
Baby, right, yeah.
So my mother went there with the relatives while I was born.
Yeah.
But ironically, on the southeast corner, there's a little white house that still stands there.
Okay.
And during the Depression, my daddy was a sharecropper on that land.
Okay.
And I lived there during my early school years.
Okay.
And
how did you end up in the utility business?
well, I had gotten out of the Navy and started to school at Union University.
Okay.
I was in class with a man by the name of Jimmy Goodwin, who worked at the old Jackson Electric Department.
All right.
And Jimmy approached two of us to do some part-time work. Well, we were carefree. We were drawing the $52 a month Navy pay and all that, and bowling and going to school. And we weren't all that excited about doing any work. And he approached us about 3 times. And finally, the other guy said, I'll tell you what to do. We were bowling down where the old Kisper building was.
Okay.
He said, he's over at City Hall, said, let's go over and talk to him. And if he'll offer us as much as 50 cents an hour, let's go work for him. Well, we went over there and talked for a few minutes, and my buddy was not very tactful. He turned to Jimmy and he said, let's cut to the chase. He said, how much money are we going to be paid? And Jimmy said, 87 cents an hour. We started at work that afternoon.
Now, you said you were bowling at the Kisper's building? Or?
Yeah, there was a bowling alley over there in the, where the old Kisper building finally moved in.
Okay,
but,
so a bowling alley.
We'd leave Union campus and come down and bowl.
Okay, because Union was in town in those days.
Yeah, it was over on the old campus, of course.
Yeah.
But,
so what year was that when you went to work with?
I went to work with 1946.
46.
In December.
Okay.
And got my first paycheck. I still have the stub. It's $9 and something. And I went out and bought a box of chocolate-covered cherries and ate the whole box. And I thought I was living high. But anyway, we did that temporary work and made ourselves indispensable. And they come up with some more work. And
went from there. Okay.
So while I was at Union, I worked there. And after 2 years at Union, I was to go to UT for my engineering degree.
Right. And
we approached the manager of the utility division. 2 of us would have, at the old electric department, 2 of us would hold the job down. One would hold the job down, the other would be at school.
Okay.
And every 6 months, we kept the same dormitory at UT, and I'd go to the dormitory and he'd work, and the next quarter he'd go to the dormitory room and I'd come work, and we did that until we graduated.
It's kind of an early co-op program there. You kind of invented your own.
We were the first co-ops.
Okay.
And incidentally, I've been followed as CEO by John Williams, Danny Wheeler, and now Jim Farrell. Right. All 3 of those were co-ops who started work.
So that's how it got started. So that opened the door.
That's a good way to get started.
Did you realize then it was going to be a career?
No. It was just
it was a job.
87 cents an hour. That was it.
That's good. Nearly twice as much as you were hoping to get. If they paid at least 50. Yeah. You know, they could have had you a lot cheaper. Didn't realize.
They didn't know it.
And so when did it become then? Because you were with the electric. The electric system at that time was part of the city, and then the gas system was
separate. The Jackson Electric Department. It was not a combined utility.
Right. It was on its own. There was a waterworks and all this other stuff.
And that was the waterworks and sewer works were operated out of City Hall.
Okay.
Jackson Electric Department was a separate entity.
Okay.
And then there was a West Tennessee Gas Company.
Okay.
So there were 4 different entities.
When did that start coming together then?
77.
Okay.
1977.
Okay, so everything got combined into
Yeah.
into one, and then when you start looking at this stuff, of course, when the utility started, you became CEO when?
77.
Okay, so all this stuff. When you look at the history of utilities here, and they start coming together, one of the big things that changed was wastewater treatment, and you were, I mean, everybody was part of that thing when government walked in one day and said you can't do direct discharge anymore into the river, right?
Yeah.
Which was an expensive thing to do.
Oh, yeah. It's really expensive. And the treatment plant out on Miller Drive was built. And then that just changed the wastewater situation completely. But when the utility division was formed and combined, then the utility and the water system were brought into the with the electric department and formed in the Jackson Utility Division.
And Bruce Bynum was the first one.
He
right?
was first general manager of the utility.
What was bringing that about, Joe, during those days? I mean, because a lot of cities still work. I mean, Nashville still works with separate entities.
Well, I think really
Jackson got ahead of the game, I think.
I think the catalyst that started it was the West Tennessee Gas Company wanted to get out of the gas business.
Okay.
So they wanted the city to buy the gas department and let them start using that. Well, if they were going to buy the gas department and combine that with the electric, why not combine the water and the wastewater? Okay. So that was how Jackson Utility Division was formed.
Well, JUD becomes a part of the fabric of the community. You were you were in there during all of this, you know.
Yeah, my career ladder. After my part-time job, when I graduated, I came back as a project engineer, and I designed the downtown underground network that's here.
Wow.
I designed the first 46,000-volt system with all the substations, and for a while I was operating superintendent in charge of the maintenance crews, and then I became chief engineer. And then I became manager of the electric department.
That underground system that y'all designed is still the one that's in place?
Same one.
It's still in place. What was prompting that because to put it underground was an extensive investment in those?
Well, it would not be done today. But back then, this is post-war.
Right.
Downtown was a nucleus for all of West Tennessee. It was a shopping center for everybody. It was a busy place. After the war, all the stores started putting in air conditioning. And all of a sudden, the system that we had downtown was just growing by leaps and bounds. And we wound up in one place in front of the old Rosenblum store. We had poles 10 feet apart down there just to have support for the transformer.
Oh, wow.
So the key to it, of course, was to get rid of the overhead system and put in the underground system. And didn't know then that the interstate was going to be built, the mall was going to be built,
okay.
And downtown was not ever going to be what it was to start with. But I don't believe today, if we still had an overhead system, I don't believe the impetus would be there to
do it.
Put an underground system because it's expensive.
Yeah, it has served the city well, though.
Yeah.
And positions downtown, and downtown's beginning to make resurgences in some ways. And of course, we got the lift and many other things going on. So it wound up being ahead of its day.
Yeah, and it's a miracle that we had it, really, and it's really a big plus.
Right. Well, this is the man to help design that. We're still benefiting from that today. Joe Exum is with us. We will continue this dialogue right here at E+ TV6.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
Steve Bowers welcoming you back to Dialogue here at E+ TV6 as we continue a conversation with Joe Exum, who, among other things in his life, was President CEO of the Jackson Utility Division, longtime member of the Rotary Club, active in directorship of the Hollywood Cemetery, and many, many other things with which he's been involved in. It's a real pleasure to talk with him. In our last segment, we found out that Joe Exum helped design the whole underground utility structure for the city of Jackson downtown. It's underground. It was quite innovative, ahead of its time. Back in the 1950s, it still serves us today. In looking at utilities, and you talked about, because the downtown was the center of the universe here in West Tennessee, all right? When you start looking then at additions, when the interstate's coming through and stuff is going north, how does a utility company try to anticipate what's going to happen out there? Because that was going to totally change, as did the bypass and everything. Everything was about to change in this city.
Well, back then, I assume now, it's probably the same way. We made 10-year projections, and every 2 years we would update the 10-year projections. And of course, it took them a while to build the interstate, so we had that foreknowledge. And took them a while to build the mall. We just had one store, and then that blossomed. So we had warnings for all of that. And so,
but boy, it was going to change, you know, because somebody was talking about one time, said, well, in the 60s, there was still a cotton gin there at Hicksville, and everything is going north out there.
But even more so was things like the industrial park, where P&G and Quaker Oats at the time and all that, where all of a sudden that wound up with a load equal to all of downtown surrounding area. So then we had the industrial park out west. So it took a while to...
Start saying, running the utility company is like your world's changing every day. I mean, you're glad all this stuff's coming in, right? But every day is changing. And then the government gets into clean air and clean water, and you got to build a wastewater treatment facility. So all of it's going on. So it's explosion all over the place.
But that was a challenge we had, is not to let the utility division be the stumbling block that kept us from getting an industry.
Okay.
So
you have to be ready.
Had to be ready.
You know, if somebody comes in, they want to spend millions in your city, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. But now in the underground, Jim Farrell was making a talk 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and he pointed out that it had some problems on the underground. They got the drawings out, and the drawings they were working with were initialed by Joe Exum.
Joe Exum, all right.
So my drawing's still
there.
Still being used.
Well, that's got to make you feel good. That's an engineer. It's like an architect, right? You design something and it's still there years later, then there's a certain satisfaction in that. Your involvement with the Hollywood Cemetery came about how?
Well, I retired in 1990, and Jack Smith used to be the head of the blood bank here. At that time was head of the cemetery, and he asked me to come on the board. Had tremendous problems. They couldn't even have it. They had no credit. They couldn't buy anything without having money on hand. And there were periods when the grass would be up waist high, literally.
Wow.
And it just had a whole new structure and a whole new everything, fundraising and everything. And Jack took over as president, and one of the first things he did, he asked all of the board members to commit $500 a year for 3 years just to get some money in the treasury to keep the place going. And we lost a couple of board members at the time, but Jack did a lot of progressive things like that. He was probably president of the cemetery probably 10 years, I don't know.
Okay.
And then I took his place and tried to keep it from going backwards from there. But
get on the board and wind up being president, right?
And I wound up being president for 7 years.
It is a privately run cemetery to this day, which is unusual, right?
Yeah,
it has its own set of challenges, but it goes back into early days of Jackson's history. After Riverside, I guess one of the first.
It was second. 1887 was the first burial there, and so it's had ups and downs. It's been different types of management. It's been charter group tried to run it, a private group tried to run it. Right now, it's a not-for-profit organization.
It's a beautiful place, and it's our cities, our cemeteries began to be segregated and all this other stuff. So they all have their own unique history here. We have a Jewish cemetery here, Catholic cemetery. I mean, there are many things that have driven this, but it's a real insight into Jackson's history.
Yeah, well, at about the same time as Hollywood was Mount Olivet. I don't know if you've ever been over there.
I have been to H. Anderson. Many people are buried there.
It's a beautiful cemetery over there,
right.
And predominantly black. And I don't know if they have any white people there. Not. We do have some blacks buried in Hollywood, but at the time they were formed as a black cemetery and a white cemetery. Right. Yeah.
And then of course Riverside, I guess, is the oldest cemetery. I guess in this is a special part of this. It's just a real special thing.
I'm sure there were probably a lot of family cemetery, small family cemeteries around. Some of my ancestors were built out on a cemetery, or buried out on a cemetery where Primrose Street is buried now. Yeah. And that was dug up, and the people were moved to Hollywood. So
it's just, well, as the utility system is. The utility system is a really unique reflection of the progression of Jackson. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing with cemeteries. I mean, as you go through different social waves and everything else, they all have their own historic mark. It's like going back and looking at old street names downtown. You know, the streets don't just get named for no reason. There's a reason that they're all named. So it's a really special thing.
Well, now, let me tell you about street names. It was a little looser. We didn't have a planning department and all that.
Okay.
And they had a little street built out there across from Northside School. And our clerk that handled all of the billing and everything at Jackson, his name was Marlowe, J.C. Marlowe. And he set up new accounts. And I was the engineer at the time and dealt with the contractor. And I said, okay, we'll build a street, laid it out. I said, what's the name of the street? I don't know. I said, find a name. I don't have a name for it. So I went back in and told the chief clerk, I said, don't have a name for the street. And he said, you got to have a name. I said, name it Marlowe. So he named it Marlowe. And that's how that Marlowe Street got to be. It was a little less formal than it is today.
Right place, right time, got a street named for me.
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. Joe Exum with us. We're going to continue this conversation, finding out many things about Jackson, Tennessee. We'll talk about the Rotary and its history here, and Joe did a lot of research into that. It's over 100 years old now as we continue this dialogue at E+TV.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Find fun activities to do, like boating and biking, or camping and hiking, plus much more. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
Everything starts out small. The things that hurt us, they all start from somewhere. The words we say, the things we do, they can grow into something else. What was small and innocent can become big and sometimes scary. All it takes is one comment, one picture, one video for something to catch fire. But a big problem doesn't need a big response. Not at first. Even if if we don't know what to say, the eye emoji can be that first step we take. Let's all pledge to take that first small step together and change the world in a big way. I'm a witness, and so are you.
Welcome back to Dialogue at E+ TV 6. Joe Exum is with us. He was president and CEO of the Jackson Utility Division, started there after World War II, and has been active with the Hollywood Cemetery, among other things in his life, and has been an active Rotarian. And we found out how Marlowe Street got its name. So if you've missed that, you can tune back in here and check us on replays. And you know, could have had a city street named after you in the right place at the right time. Your involvement with Rotary began how?
Well, in 1958, Hamp Meeks was manager of the old Jackson Electric Department, and he decided to take a job over in the Far East doing high pay and all of that. So just surprised everybody he left. Even more of a surprise, he recommended to the board that they hire me to take his place.
Okay.
Well, I was a young kid, wasn't all that old. Board didn't have that much confidence in me, so they didn't make me manager. They made me assistant manager, acting manager.
Acting manager,
acting
right?
manager.
Kind of an interim deal.
So acting manager, no increase in pay, but a lot of publicity that I was taking over.
Okay.
So all of the insurance agents called me and wanted to join me in my newfound wealth and everything. So I had all kinds of people approaching me wanting part of my money. But Seeger Jackson called me and wanted me to be a member of Rotary Club.
Okay.
So now I'd been engineer. I worked in khakis outside, did all my work, had a Sunday suit, that was it. Manager of the electric department had to have a suit every day.
Right.
So I had to buy 2 or 3 suits at the time. Joined Rotary and had to make the down payment for Rotary and all that.
Okay.
And it was about going broke with Christmas coming on. I had a couple of kids, and still no increase in pay. And I went home and I told my wife, I got some great news for you. And she said, don't tell me it was another promotion. That we hadn't gotten over the last one yet. So that's
how you got into Rotary.
That's how I got into Rotary.
You did a good bit of research in connection with the 100th anniversary of Rotary. What all did you find out about that organization as far as its place in Jackson and everything?
Well, it started in 1916, which is the 200 and something club in the United States. Now they have 50,000 clubs all over the world.
Wow.
But Rotary itself started in 1905 in Chicago. So for Jackson to be in 1916
right. Okay.
is pretty short time after the original thing. So it's been steadily improved and grown and everything.
Who started it here? Did the records exist of it, actually the?
Oh yeah, I've got charter members. I've got them on the tip of my tongue. But I.B. Tigert was one of them.
Okay.
Oh golly, I should have done some research.
No, it's all right. I mean, I just, it's interesting that these clubs, because at one time, civic clubs here, the world's changed a lot more activities out there, and civic clubs are not as prominent as they were. It's just like Masonic Lodge, everything else. I mean, some of the first organizations in this community were Masonic lodges. I mean, it's all, once again, a part of our history. But Rotary, all these organizations have a great history here. But so I.B. Tigert was one of the members.
Well, I.B. Tigert and the woodworking industry was big, and we had people with that were members. They had about 15 or 20 charter members, all the most prominent people in Jackson. So it was a good group of people, substantial people. That's why Rotary continued to grow.
When you look at Jackson now, and all that stuff, and you look back on it, what were the key points of change for Jackson in your life that you've seen, where you say, well, we started becoming a different type of city, or whatever?
Yeah, I think the interstate was a big factor, a big change. Okay. I think the heavy industries that we started getting, major industries. Of course, at the time, Bemis was a big factor in Jackson.
Right, okay.
Always had been, but it stood out as a major industry along with the wood mosaic and the Morgan lumber and the lumber industries. But when we got Procter & Gamble as a major industry, that started changing Jackson. And people like Quaker Oats and others then started coming to Jackson. We've got had then and have now some wonderful industries in Jackson.
I guess the other thing with the interstate, it's not only going to change, I mean, it was going to change downtown retail and residential development, many things changing there. I guess the other thing is it also represented the demise of the railroad to a certain extent, which had, in some ways, built this city, I guess.
Yeah, and, you know, we had the trains came right through the center of Jackson back then. In fact, when we were at 119 East College Street, when we used our back driveway, we had to stop for trains half a dozen times a day because it was an active IC railroad train track. And the old Union Station, where it was a combined GM&O and IC Railroad used the same train station. That was a big deal. And of course, when I left, I graduated from high school May the 25th, 1945, and 7 days later, I was on a troop train leaving out of South Royal going to the Navy. So I had 1 week between high school and Navy.
And South Royal is still a special place, thanks to the NC and St. L Depot still being there. It's good to visit with you.
I've enjoyed it.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. Like I said, it's just a reminder. You know, everything is built on something else. You know, we built on a foundation, and like I said, if you're looking for the downtown underground infrastructure, it's still got Joe Exum's initials on there, the man who designed it. Pleasure to see you. I appreciate this very much. Thank you for being with us. Our appreciation to Joe Exum, also to you. You stay with us here at D+ TV6 because this is the place where the dialogue continues.